is that just a fucking preview? Alright. Now will this show as... Yes. Then mute this. Is that... now we post that. Not now. This fucking... I really hate my computer sometimes. Click already. There, at Ev. Copy and paste there. Alright. Alright. Hopefully everything's coming through okay. Because this is... like, every time I stream, there always has to be some, you know, CPU overload. And it leaves me worried that the stream might be laggy. But anyway, hey guys, RanterInShades here, exercise my First Amendment rights stream style. Been a while, how y'all doing? So, figured I'd continue the sort of tradition that I've been doing where, you know, I do a birthday stream and just chill with the people here. Because the birthday plans that I have aren't set to take place until this weekend. This weekend, the end of this week in general is always, you know, looking quite hectic. Like, I'm going to be, you know, with family on Saturday, but on both Friday and Sunday are when I'm going to be going to concerts. So, going to be pretty packed. Along with that, I got a job interview on Friday, so... that's a thing going on as well. And I also am finishing up on my next video, which I'm probably going to be premiering on Saturday, just to sort of give me some time to go through any final nitpicks that I have with the thing before it's, you know, all good to upload, and I won't have, you know, anything that I need to, you know, center uploading it around. But yeah, that's what the rest of this week is going to be looking like. But today, it's another, you know, quiet birthday and whatnot. not too dissimilar to, birthdays in the past and whatnot. It's my final year of my 20s as well, so that's always cool. But in addition to just, hanging, I'm going to do what I did in the last stream I did over here and just talk about some shows that I've been going to throughout this year. And, talk about that, because I got some cool stories about that, because been to quite a number of them since when I streamed in February, when I went to my 100th show. Right now, I think I'm at 114 right now. So, anyway, gonna start this with not something that I have on my official document, which I should open a tab for that. Just so I can follow along and have the info ready. But anyway, this isn't on my official document, but the next shirt that I added in my collection, it's a band that is from the Westchester scene in New York, back in that area. I've spoken about a friend of mine named AJ who has a band called Shakeout. I've promoted Shakeout on here a number of times. When he was doing a, short little, mini tour, and he was going to be coming to Mass, of course I got to go out and see him. The band that he had on tour with him from Yonkers, where he's from, is this band called For Lack of a Term. The shirt says alt-rock down there. They're basically sort of a emo, pop-punky, kind of band. I really like their name as well, For Lack of a Term. I originally discovered them in 2016 when I was looking at who was going to be playing at the local music fest back over where I went to college. I didn't actually go there because I was back home at the time, but I was just sort of interested in what kinds of bands were going to be playing over there, and this was one of them that really jumped out at me. And yeah, they're a pretty solid band. Very much recommended if you're into sort of, newer pop punk and all that. I'm 29 this year. I mentioned a little bit ago that this was the final year of my 20s, so whoa. Anyway, next. So, I mentioned when I saw Tremonti that I was completing the sort of Alter Bridge trifecta, so next in line for completing that would, of course, be Slash. So, of course, Miles Kennedy right over there is the front man in Slash's solo band, and that's a big part of why I really like Slash's solo albums, is because I feel it's due in large part to his presence on the albums that they don't sound dated at all. Like, Slash's playing is known to sound gritty and bluesy and all that. Of course, we all love that, but I feel, again, it doesn't really sound too much like 80s stuff. It sounds a lot more modern, and that's why I've always been very interested in his solo releases. Obviously, the first solo album that he did where he had a multitude of different singers, that's always been my favorite of Slash's albums. But if he's going to pick an official full-time or whatever, an official frontman for his band, of course, you can't go wrong with Miles Kennedy. I love him so much. He's a great singer. And this was a cool show. Slash was, quite wild, where he was doing a lot of the extended solos and whatnot. And not to mention, of course, I'd take seeing Slash solo over Guns N' Roses nowadays, because I've not heard amazing things about how Axl sounds live. And so, obviously, Slash is the main thing that everybody likes about Guns N' Roses. So, of course, this would be where I would, go to be seeing him and whatnot. So, yeah, had a fun time with this one. After that, we're in, late March, I think. Went out to Cambridge for this one. Had the hardest time finding parking, but managed to find a place to park and get in time to see the band I was mainly going to see, Strike Anywhere. If you don't know them, they are a melodic hardcore band from the early 2000s. They are very fast, quite shreddy, and a band that I always recommend to people that aren't really into punk and just want some fast stuff and whatnot. Strike Anywhere is always a band that I'm going to be recommending. I wouldn't say their performance was as eclectic as I was hoping it would be, but it was still pretty solid. They were actually opening for a punk band from the 90s, Hot Water Music, who, they're alright. I always thought they were alright. Their set was okay. Strike Anywhere, of course, was who I was mainly going to see. This didn't really last incredibly long in the rotation, but, yeah, pretty alright time that was. After that, one of the shows, actually I'm going to catch up with the chat. When I think of Yonkers, I think of Immolation. I just recently turned 25. Good to see you back. Long time no see. Phenomenal vocalist. I've always found GNR overrated, in my opinion. I can agree with that, but it's mostly just some specific songs that I'm just kind of tired of hearing. I've just gotten so burnt on fucking Welcome to the Jungle. I still enjoy Sweet Child of Mine. I still think that has a really great solo, but I can do without Welcome to the Jungle. It's mainly stuff like that. I think Guns N' Roses are a good band, but yeah, just quite overhyped. The Use Your Illusion albums, I think, are some of the most interesting hard rock albums ever. Miles is indeed an awesome vocalist. Got to be sure to see him with Alter Bridge someday. I did get a ticket for Alter Bridge's next tour. This February is when I'm going to be seeing them for the 5th time, but 4th time headlining. I fucking love Strike Anywhere and Hot Water Music. Cool. Glad to see someone else is into that stuff. What are some shows you got coming up? I'll get to that. Do I have a list? I do. The concerts I've been to, Doc, it's linked in various places. I know you can find it in the last shirt collection video I ever made, because Facebook recently got rid of notes, so I had to create a Google Doc for it, but that's where my list is. But anyway, the next show I went to, this is one of the things that was postponed, that I was originally supposed to see in 2020, that got postponed, then canceled, and then rescheduled. And I went to this show with Space Metal Ferrari because we were originally going to be seeing this together. This would be Dragon Force. Got a pretty excellent design over here with the Extreme Power Metal cover, their most recent album. I love the purple on here, and there's tour dates on the back. So, I'd mentioned in the What's Wrong With that I did on Dragon Force that I'd been curious for the longest time if they can actually play live, because I remember that was like a big thing that everyone was saying about them, is that they speed up their songs in the studio and suck live. But I finally got to see for myself that, yeah, they actually can play live. There was only maybe a couple moments where there was a bit of sloppiness, but overall, pretty fun show, although they were mostly doing newer stuff, not a whole lot of ZP Third era stuff. But yeah, it was quite great seeing Herman Lee and Sam Topman just destroy the shit. And the stage setup was also pretty excellent. There was just a big video game setup with lots of platforms. Pretty wild show. Really glad I finally got to do this. As I mentioned in a previous chat, it's so sad that Axel fell from grace and can't even sing anymore. Yeah, like, dude got fat. Dude can't really sing as well. Like, for the longest time, I'd been really just holding out on seeing Guns N' Roses live, mainly because Slash wasn't, in the band. It was just Axl and, newer musicians and whatnot. I don't even really remember all the names. But even when, Slash and Duff came back into the band, you start hearing about how awful his singing has gotten as of late. And it's like, God damn it. Like, I feel bad. I can see people getting sick of Welcome to the Jungle and Sweet Child of Mine. I still love them both. Like, they're not bad songs. I'm just kind of tired of hearing Welcome to the Jungle. Like, it's basically their Don't Stop Believin'. Saw them in 2015. They sold it. I remember seeing a clip of Herman Lee attempting a guitar swing and his strap broke. I think I remember seeing something like that as well. But yeah, this was a awesome freaking show. After that, we're now in late April. You won't be able to tell just based on this, but this is Era. So I went out to Providence for this show because Era, they've been on my concert bucket list for years. They're like my favorite, progressive metalcore band. They just have really great licks, great riffs, and I always just get really excited whenever they do stuff. So, of course, I gotta go out for them. They were on tour with Beartooth, Silverstein, and Devil Wears Prada. This was my third time seeing Silverstein, my second time seeing Beartooth, and Devil Wears Prada I had also not seen. So, of course, that was cool too. But I was mainly going for Era. If you don't know them, definitely check them out. They're freaking excellent. This was the design that I liked the best. You can barely tell, that design right there. You can make out the letters ERRA. And on the back, we got this design where we got lyrics for, forget the name of the song, but I know it was one of the singles from their last album that came out last year. Snowblood, that's what it was. Yeah, definitely like this back design. And purple tie-dye, can't go wrong there. I really like purple, and I really like tie-dye. Most of the bands on classic rock radio, like Guns N' Roses, are overrated. Yeah, it's a big part of why I don't really like listening to classic rock radio. And as I said, if Axl had a younger relative, like a grandson that looked like him in his younger years, he would be immediately jealous and spiteful of him. I can say the same about Vince Neil. He definitely sounded off and low energy when I went back and watched the video clips I filmed at the stadium tour I went to. Right, and of course, I'm sure you guys have seen that one clip of when he was singing Kickstart My Heart and he was just sort of mumbling like and you just could not understand what he was saying. Like, I'm glad I saw Motley Crue when I did, so I don't need to see them now. I saw them back in 2011, and that was a great show, and glad I got to do it back then so I wouldn't need to do so now. Have not been to Providence since 2018. Thankfully got to see GNR during the Not in This Lifetime tour back in 2016 before Axl's singing got worse. Gungrave is my favorite off the self-titled. So how many laps around the sun? I've made it now 29. Up next, and I'm glad that Atticus is in the chat right now because this is a gift that I got from him. So if you've been following his channel, he moved into a house this year with some people that he's living with, and he was selling some of his shirts just to get some extra bucks, and I decided to lend him some bucks. I wanted one of a band that I at least knew and didn't have as freakish of a design because I'm just not really that big a fan of those. And the one I got was Whitechapel. So, I'm not really the hugest deathcore fan, but Whitechapel has always been my favorite deathcore band. They've been the band that I've always thought evolved the best throughout their career. Like, The Valley was such a great album from them. It's like my new favorite from them. It topped This Is Exile. But yeah. This design ain't bad. Got some cool colors and whatnot. I asked Atticus where he got it. He got it at a Hot Topic. So. Did you see the Train Records video on Motley Crue? Yes, I did. The one on Generation Swine. Generation Swine has never really been that a lot of people like at all because of, you know, the difference in sound, the weird writing, and all that. Like, in the video that I'm gonna have coming out later this week, it does touch a little on glam metal in the 90s and just sort of what happened there. Fam, This Is Exile was the magnum opus. That was my favorite for the longest time. The Valley, I just think, has a much more interesting narrative and just had a more enjoyable experience, I would say. Also, I know he did it for the sake of PR, I think, but I'm going to miss Stoutmeister's content as there were some really good rants, whether it be him, owning BOTDF, or homophobes. We will get to that later in this, rest assured. But anyway, next in the line of shows I went to, another show that I was originally supposed to go to in 2020 that got postponed and then canceled was Symphony X. Another show that I went to with space metal, and yeah, they had Haken opening for them, which was great because I love Haken. Second time seeing them since when they were opening for Devin Townsend in 2020, the last show I went to before the pandemic started. But Symphony X has been on my bucket list forever as well. You know, if you're into prog at all, they're a name that everyone is going to know over there. Really, really just great musicians. I love Michael Romeo, and I love Michael Pinella, the keyboardist. And they had a number of cool designs. This was, and, you know, in honor of their 25th anniversary, as it says on the back, they had album art from them, you know, for a lot of the designs. And the one that I ended up going with that I thought looked the best was the one for the Odyssey, which is definitely one of my favorites from Symphony X. It's the album that my favorite song of theirs comes from, Inferno Unleash the Fire, which they unfortunately did not play, and I was not incredibly happy about that. Other than that, it was a very well done show. For me, it's not a matter of whether they sound bad, it's just that these are just bands I outgrew. On the topic of Whitechapel, a new era of corruption is heavily underrated. Set the world on fire. They did play that. Metal elitists be like, ugh, but what would a real rocker be doing where all the metal opposer scene kids go for their apparel? Right. That was in Worst Songs of 2021 where I made that reference about Hot Topic. NEOC was really, really, really well produced. Paradise Lost was my fave off them. My favorite from Symphony X, I would say, wow, Twilight and Olympus is probably up there. Go away, spinning wheel, please. God damn it. Stupid fucking... Divine Wings of Tragedy and Twilight and Olympus. Those are like my top two. Odyssey and Paradise Lost would be after that. There's music I don't like. Not going to go into my extensive preferences because it goes everywhere. The difference between me and a music elitist is I live and let live. Yeah, pretty much. I don't even know if Atticus listens to The Used. It'd be cool if he did, but, yeah, new era of corruption. The Bird and the Worm. My favorite from The Used has always been Blood on My Hands. Right, next. And keeping in line with prog metal, next was Born of Osiris. Another really excellent progressive metalcore band. One of the best over there. And this has the artwork for their most recent album over there. And got tour dates on the back. This was a pretty crowded show in the place I was seeing them at. It was in the upstairs Palladium, which gets quite crowded there. But, yeah, this was a pretty alright show. They had Veil of Maya opening. I didn't get in on time to see any one that was before them. But yeah, pretty cool performance there. Let me scroll down there. So, after that, another progressive metalcore show at the Palladium with After the Burial. So, this was the design I got, and tour dates on the back. I always feel really bad that I didn't get into After the Burial until after the death of their guitarist, Justin Lowe. But nonetheless, you know, after Era, they would probably be my favorite progressive metalcore band. I've always, you know, really enjoyed their stuff. Even the stuff that they've done post Justin Lowe after that, such as my favorite song of theirs, which would be Lost in the Static, which those of you that watch Some Black Guy, he used to use that song in an intro that he used to use. I really miss when he used that intro, but when they got to playing this song, and I recorded this, and you can find it on my Instagram, but when they played the riff in that song, I just shouted "Supreme Victory" as basically a tribute to Derek. That was fun. Me and Cam, the drummer, bonded over a certain butt rock vocalist. Yep. I remember that. R.I.P. Justin. Evergreen was a big step up. Do you have plans to see the stadium tour? No, I did not have plans because I've seen Poison, Motley Crue, and Def Leppard all before. Poison and Def Leppard I've actually seen twice. And Joan Jett I'm just not really that huge into. You know, I'd seen the three of them already, so I don't really feel like I need to see them again. Poison I saw in 2011. Weirdly enough, the two times I saw Poison, the first time was opening for Motley Crue, and the second time was opening for Def Leppard. So that Poison and Motley Crue one, that was in 2011, and when they were with Def Leppard, that was a year later in 2012. And the second time I saw Def Leppard was when they were co-headlining with Kiss in 2014. So I don't really think I need to see them again, because I imagine their set list probably won't be all that different, because they're mostly going to be playing the classics that everyone likes anyway, so that's why I didn't really feel I need to get a ticket for the stadium tour. You know, obviously, I'm sure people had a lot of fun with that. I just didn't really feel a need to see it myself. So after that was when I went to Sad Summerfest this year, which is basically the sort of wow, why am I forgetting? The basically successor to Warped Tour. It's not as big as Warped Tour, but it has a lot of the same vibe as Warped Tour. One of the shirts that I got, because I got two from this show, the first was Hot Mulligan. This is a, like, sort of iron-on patch over there. And we got this on the back. Pretty alright colors. Hot Mulligan, if you don't know, they're, you know, like emo, pop punk, got some math elements in there. They're a lot more traditional emo, so check them out if that interests you. I ended up showing up to Sad Summerfest a lot earlier this year than I did last year, because when I intentionally arrived late last year, the line was friggin' gigantic, and I ended up missing the band that I was really looking forward to seeing at that show, which was Grayscale. So I showed up earlier. The line was still pretty long, but it was a lot faster moving, and I ended up not missing any band's set, because I was really hoping I would get in time to see Hot Mulligan's set. And also on this tour, they had Lolo, this female singer, Hot Milk, which is a UK pop punk band that I got into through ARTV, the Somerset, then Hot Mulligan, then State Champs, my third time seeing them, then Mayday Parade, and then the next band that came on after them, which was Waterparks. A band that's doing quite well for themselves. They have a pretty rabid audience and a very eclectic frontman in Austin Knight, who spells his name as Awsten, and dyes his hair some pretty funny colors. But yeah, I liked this design, and on the back it looks like there's tour dates, but they're actually fake tour dates. Let me read these to you. So, here's what it says. Today, Lucas's B-Day. January 1st, New Year's Day. January 8th, Stella's B-Day. January 17th, Austin's B-Day, Happy Face. January 26th, Entertainment. That's when they released that album. February 1st, Text Them Back. February 13th, Block Them. February 14th, Valentine's Day, cute exclamation point in parentheses. February 29th, Leap Year Sometimes. March 3rd, Fight a Fan Day. March 20th, Start of Spring. March 27th, The Art of the Anti-Tour show. April 3rd, first EP. April 11th, Never Forget. April 13th, 103. April 14th, The Titanic Sank with 3 exclamation points. April 20th, and it says nothing after that because we all know what April 20th is. April 666, and it just shows that weird shit. May 21st, Greatest Hits, when that album came out. And I still really do not like that title because this is not a compilation album. These are not your greatest hits. May 25th, Remember the Alamo. June 6th, Saturday probably. July 2nd, Jeff's B-Day. June 22nd, biggest headline ever so far, in parentheses. July 8th, Self-Sabotage. July 13th, Houston. Saturday, 7 p.m. August 17th, first show. September 12th, Yearly Shower Day. October 9th, tour date. I wasn't there. October 11th, Fandom, when that album came out. November 4th, Double Dare, my favorite album of theirs, when that album came out. November 17th, November 17th. November to July, Crawfish Season. December 0, Bonus Day Celebrities Get. December 25th, Christmas. December 28th, Otto's B-Day. ASAP, Parks 5. So, funny stuff on the back. Are there any newer pop-punk bands that you're into? Some of mine are First and Forever, Magnolia Park, Loveless, and Cherry Amour. Magnolia Park and Cherry Amour I got into this year / last year. I could go on about a number of newer pop-punk bands. Quite a lot. I named some in the Why I Hate the Rock is Dead argument video. Pour Some Sugar on Me is such a salacious song and I love it. Yes, I know Def Leppard sings other stuff. Bringing on the Heartbreak, being a standout bop. My favorite song of Def Leppard's is Let's Get Rocked. Which, the first verse of that song was written about Bart Simpson. And the second verse was written about a real-life experience of Joe Elliott. Saw Joan missed her first 3 songs and Poison for the first time. Motley Crue I saw first in 2015 on their quote-unquote farewell tour and saw Def Leppard along with Journey in 2018. I never heard Water Parks, but I love that. They're kind of more of a pop rock band than a pop punk band, but you still hear a lot of those pop punk elements in their more recent stuff. But yeah, do give them a listen. They're pretty fun. After that, a show I've been talking about having a ticket for years that got postponed twice. Finally got to freaking see this. Rage Against the Machine. Made a trip to New York for this. Had an amazing time over there. They had run the Jules opening, which I missed most of their set because I was waiting in line for merch. And this was the one I got. Originally, I wasn't intending on getting this design because you see that hair, it's like, oh god, this isn't some fucking Trump-related thing, but I don't think that face looks like Trump. And plus, there's a bikini down there, so... But anyway, you see the machinery inside that they're raging against and all that. And there's tour dates on the back, so, of course, there's that. This set was pretty much everything I could have wanted. There was only maybe a small number of songs that I wish could have gotten played, such as Wake Up and maybe a couple more tracks from Renegades wouldn't have hurt, but near perfect set list otherwise. And surprisingly, there wasn't really much preachiness at this. Like, there was one point towards the end where they showed like what looked like some PowerPoint presentation about some charities that the band was donating the tour profits to, these charities that help black people that were wrongfully incarcerated and all that. But other than that, the most they did was when they were playing Killin' in the Name to close their set out, was, you know how the only lyrics in the verses are some of those that burn forces are the same that burn crosses. They changed in the second verse, midway through the second verse, they changed the lyrics to some of those that burn crosses are the same that are in office. You see what they did there? It's really clever. But yeah, the show was excellent. Glad I finally got to do it. Listen to Jim Blossom's a little. Def Leppard, Pyromania or Hysteria. Hysteria is my pick. Pyromania is my pick. Hysteria is my second favorite. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Yep. Indeed. So, after that, you know, who was it that mentioned this in the chat? Eternal Blue, you know, with the mention of Stoutmeister, the next up in line is this. If you don't know what this is his band, Apeiron Bound. I ordered this along with a pre-order of his debut album, Multiplicity, on CD, because of course, you got to do that. The album's been out for a little over a month. If you have not listened to it, you very much should. It is some really great prog metal with some very solid playing, particularly on the track that features Angel Vivaldi doing a guest solo. The vocals are okay. They sound very power metal-y. There's even some death growls over there. Solid work overall. And, for anybody that's ever asked me or Atticus, over the last, 4 years or so, where's Stoutmeister? There he is. So, y'all should definitely support his career. Check the album out. If he ever does a tour, go see it. But I'm very much proud of that. I also have a little thank you note from him that I have tacked up on my wall of fame over there. To Shades, thank you for being the MVP since day one. Amazing going from ranting into a camera about a number of topics to pursuing music full-time. You're an intelligent and talented guy. Don't let anything hold you back from pursuing your goals. Take that shit to the next level. Cheers, Stout. But yeah, really like this design as well. The blue. Still sort of relevant. Yeah, that's the weird thing about Rage's music is how relevant a lot of it can still be. Growls sound like Nick Holmes. Same here. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me unless my band's sponsors tell me to. Fucking God. Yeah, that was another thing that was a big talking point is, they're, charging so much money for these tickets and selling out these venues. I saw them at Madison Square Garden in New York. It was my first time being in New York since 2018, which was back when I met Jared Dines. That was the last time I'd been in New York until this. But I don't know. Kind of like what I said on the What's Wrong With on Rage Against the Machine. It's one of those things where I believe that the ends justify the means. That's why I'm not really, as, upset, I guess, at that. Now, on the topic of that Rage Against the Machine tour, the other reunion tour that I had a ticket for that got postponed twice from 2020 would be My Chemical Romance. And the back is a lot more interesting. This, of course, we can't go wrong with the two people on the cover of Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge. But yeah, quite a bit that I wish got played here. The seat that I had was also kind of slightly behind the stage. I was not really pleased with the seat that I got. But, yeah, good show overall. Quite a lot that I wish got played. Like, my favorite song of theirs, Dead. But yeah, glad to have gotten this out of the way. After that was when I saw Shinedown. Went out to Mansfield at the Xfinity Center. And solid show, I would say. Did a pretty good job. I've always thought Brent Smith was a good vocalist and Zach Myers a good guitarist. I really like his PRS model that he has. Yeah. Quite a bit of older songs that I wish got played in this set, but this was the design I got with that big S. And on the back, we have It's Never Goodbye, It's Just Till Next Time, along with tour dates there. I've always thought Shinedown were a solid band. Like, as far as, 2000s post-grunge and whatnot, they've always been a band that I've always thought was one of the best from that era, and that no one really has anything negative to say about. But yeah. Thoughts on the Ronnie Radke versus Eddie Trunk / Sebastian Bach feud. Before I started this stream, I was watching Finn McKenty's video about that, which was... But it just strikes me as just more bitch fights and whatnot. Like, it really just boils down to who cares if a band plays with any kind of backing track. The most I really want is for it to not be just obvious lip syncing or anything like that. Like, most bands use backing tracks and whatnot. Like, for example, if there's keyboards in a song and there isn't a keyboardist on stage, obviously a backing track is going to contain that, along with maybe some other things, maybe a rhythm guitar track. So it's not unheard of for a band to be doing this. And so I do think it's kind of dumb that Eddie Trunk and whatnot was freaking out about that, considering how standard it kind of is. Like, but at the end of it all, I just really don't care. If you're playing with a backing track, okay, it doesn't really affect the overall performance that much. And if you're not playing with a backing track and it's just 100% you, then cool. At the end of the day, it's all about whether or not you had a good time at the show. I'm not okay, I promise. I don't think anyone here really cares enough to follow it. Is that the same Sebastian Bach and Skid Row? Yes, it is that Sebastian Bach. Like, who do you think it is? Johann Sebastian Bach? That guy's not even alive. Good band from my hometown. Let's not forget when Sebastian got a bottle to the head. Oh yeah, another thing. Since I mentioned Finn's video about it, I did not like that he felt the need to bring up that one time when Sebastian Bach wore a shirt that said AIDS kills, fags dead. It's like, is this relevant to anything? No. So what's the point? Don't go full Ashley Simpson. Yeah, pretty much. I also feel bad whenever, like, and I've seen a number of shows where, where it's like a solo guitarist and they're doing this. It's just them on stage, and no one else, and they have a backing track for everything else. I always feel bad whenever I go to a show like that because, not because I'm against backing tracks or anything like that, but because it's like, I think everybody deserves someone to play with. It's like you're on stage by yourself. It's like, yeah, you're a good musician, but why do you need to be by yourself? I mean, obviously, I get that, maybe touring expenses and, paying for these people to, be on the tour and whatnot might be a bit out of your price range. But still, though, I don't like seeing people by themselves on stage. This was the case when I saw Andy James when he was on tour with Scale the Summit and Angel Vivaldi. And it was also the case when I saw Buckethead and Michelangelo Batio. It's like, yeah, great musicians, but like, feel bad that you gotta be by yourself. I'll just sum it up like this. Backing tracks can help with building a theme or an atmosphere, but anyone who uses one as a crutch to mime play should have their hands gorilla glued together. Yeah, like, that's basically what it really boils down to. It's very similar to how I feel about autotune. It's that it's there to help with general pitch correction, but, if you're being really lazy about it and just having it do all the work, that's when people take issue. But anyway, next show that I went to later that week in September was another band that I actually reference in the video that I got coming out, Meshuggah. The ultimate progressive death metal band, the godfathers of gent. This was a very hectic show, I would say. I got in time. They had Converge opening for them. I made the very end of their set, and then after that is when these Swedes came on, and on the back we got some orange text over there. But yeah, quite all over the place. Like, it was a pretty intense show. Like, there was one moment where the floor was just really massive, and I've mentioned before that I don't really like moshing because I'm here to listen to live music. I could really do without being pushed and shoved around. So I basically went up those small stairs over there, and there was this one dude who was trying to mosh up there, and he was just shoving me into a railing. And the people around me could see how much I just was not liking that, and were just getting him to stop. And I was just literally like, go fuck yourself. It's like, the pit's down there. If you want to mosh, go down there. Why do you got to be up here? Another thing I noted about this was the fact that they did not play Bleed, which kind of shocked me. But, I guess I can understand, the fact that the song's been memed to death as being like the prototypical gent song, that then they're probably sick of it and whatnot, so they probably wouldn't play that. Yeah, overall, very well done show. It was quite wild. But God, bet that show was a banger. I read that in the voice of Hank Hill. Is the next video on Queensrÿche? No, it is not on Queensrÿche. I don't really think I need to do a WWW on Queensrÿche because the most I really feel like I would say about them, I said in a video I did about bands that tour in two different lineups, which is what Queensrÿche was doing at the time, but thankfully is not doing anymore, it looks like, because the Jeff Tate version of the band is now being called Operation Mindcrime, or I think just Mindcrime. I forget what it's called. But the Todd Latour fronted one, that's the one that is actually being called Queensrÿche. And yeah, I don't really feel like I need to do a video on that since I pretty much already talked about that. Yes, Sugar Puffs, my favorite cereal, and the O is a 0. Yeah, it's good. It's very healthy. It's one of the healthiest cereals ever. I read it in the voice of Jim Ross. All right, and then the final thing I have in the stack over here is a third reunion tour that was announced this year, Mars Volta, which the logo is right down in the corner right there, and no tour dates on the back. I was pretty surprised to see this announced along with the new album being announced because, like, I'd known for a long time that that Cedric and Omar weren't on the best of terms, but they did reunite to do an At the Drive-In album a few years back. I wasn't sure if they were going to be doing that with Mars Volta as well, which is the band of theirs that I always liked much, much better than At the Drive-In. At the Drive-In is cool. Mars Volta, though, is just a lot more interesting musically. And so, of course, I was going to jump on that. But yeah, that was a pretty good show. Very proggy, and the very next day after that, this was like last weekend that I went to that. I did not get a shirt at this show because they were out of shirts in my size. But I'd never seen a concert 2 days in a row. I've never done anything like that before. But the day after the Mars Volta show, which was last Saturday, I made a trip out to Cambridge to see Sungazer, which is the YouTuber Adam Neely's band. It's basically a prog rock, jazz fusion, experimental pop band. It's very proggy stuff. Very interesting stuff. And Adam Neely is one of my favorite, I guess, channels. Like, I get interested whenever he puts a video out. I really like his editing. And I like to consider myself very versed in music theory, but his videos have a way of, like, really humbling me. And it's like, god damn. And that's really reflected in, the stuff he does with this band. It was a quite well done show. The musicians were all very good. Especially the sax player that he had with them. But that's all the shows that I've been to, and the ones I got coming up. Because I mentioned at the beginning of the stream that on Friday and Sunday, the 2 days that are surrounding the day that I have birthday plans with my mom and my brother. On Friday, I'm seeing John Petrucci solo. And he's got Mike Portnoy playing drums with him. So this is the closest that I've gotten so far to a Liquid Tension Experiment show. And on Sunday, I'm seeing The Contortionist and Rivers of Nile. Mainly going for Rivers of Nile because I've seen The Contortionist before. And they're going to be playing, I think, Intrinsic and Language in full. And Language is my favorite album of theirs, so that should be cool. And Rivers of Nile is going to be playing The Work in full, I think. And they're a band that, another band that I have Atticus to thank for getting me into them. It was a very worthwhile recommendation. It's basically progressive death metal with saxophone. So, of course, I'm going to be jumping on that. Anyway, that's what I got this weekend. Then in November, I'm going to be seeing Joe Satriani. This is my 5th time seeing him. And then the last one I have tickets for, it's Alter Bridge's next tour, which is for February. There's, I think, maybe 1 or 2 other shows I'm considering, but I'm already going to a lot of shows this year. Like, I've broken my record for most concerts in a year this year. Like, by the end of this year, I'll have gone to, like, 19 shows. But one that I'm thinking of that also takes place in November, I got an email notification that a band that I have Stout to thank for exposing me to, and a lot of other people to, a band that he's promoted and featured many times in his videos, Earthside. I got an email notification that they were going to be on tour with Vola. Weirdly enough, another band that Stout got me into. And I'm like, this sounds like a cool lineup. So there's a chance I might get a ticket for that. But yeah. That's my concert activity. Very all over the place. Anyway. Let me catch up with the chat. My reasoning is because you mentioned earlier that it had something to do with glam, then talked about Meshuggah, and they were the only band I thought of that teetered between those genres. Teetered between... Huh? Oh, yeah. Yes, the band that my older brother would not shut the fuck up about. I think Todd LaTorre does pretty well with Queensrÿche. He was hitting the high notes without issue when I saw them back in March with Judas Priest. Not to mention, they open with my favorite song. I wouldn't mind seeing Queensrÿche, actually. You know, they've always been kind of a maybe band and whatnot, but honestly, I kind of do not like Jeff Tate that much personally. I mean, he was great in the 80s and 90s and whatnot, but I just do not like what he does musically nowadays. So, certainly a maybe. Do I like true crime? If so, thoughts on the story of the Norwegian band Mayhem. Atticus and Coffee House Crime cover their story. I'm not really a huge true crime guy or anything like that, but I do know that Atticus did a video on Mayhem. I forget if it was for Death Metal Historian or for Death Metal or Cinemas. I know it was for one of them because he talked about Lords of Chaos in there. They open with Queen of the Rake. Neat. Mars Volta is like if Queens of the Stone Age was high on a briefcase filled with drugs, but it's more heavy. Like, their set reminded me a lot of when I saw Dream Theater, and there was a bit of Coheed, I would say. Does he like true crime? Let's find out. Shades already knows about it. Not a Shades, but I like Coffee House Crime. Same here, Adrian is very based. Okay, you had me at saxophone. The saxoning. Sax and violins. That's a song title I think I've heard before. I feel like. Oh yeah, it's by Talking Heads. Seems like you've gotten lots of birthday gifts in the form of show tickets and merchandise. Seems like you had a great birthday, I guess. It's quiet, as my birthday tends to be. Alright, it was Death Metal Historian. Have we reached a point where the last name Tate is simply cursed to be eternally assigned to D-bags. Honestly, kind of. Because a third person that I know with the last name Tate, that's spelled like that, is also somebody that went on to become, like, kind of an alt-right simp kind of individual. If anybody remembers Silvershank or Bloody Bucket Sinister, that's what has become of him. Like, I'll always remember when he uploaded some video called Centrism, and in the video he justified Hitler at one point in the video, and it got put in limited state. And it was at that point where I was like, okay, I think I need to distance myself from him. Like, I knew he was kind of going in that direction for a bit, but this was like the sort of climax, I guess, where I was like, okay. But I know which other Tate you're referring to, and yeah, he can suck a fuck. Did you do anything fun for your B-Day other than the stream? No, not really. I slept pretty late today. But yeah, not really much else other than that. Finishing up on the video I'm editing. But yeah. I stay silent on that? Yeah. What about Attila? Avenue Teal? You said suck a fuck. That was just like the first thing that came to mind. I don't know if that's actually a reference to Attila. No, he's not referring to that Attila. Oh my god. So, if anybody watched the last video that Felix Wolf made about bad album covers, he showed the album art of a band called Attila, but not the Attila that you're probably thinking of. This was not a metalcore band. It was a like psychedelic rock proto-metal band from the early 70s that Billy Joel fronted before his career really took off. And speak of the devil, hey, Felix came over here. Hey, man. You're welcome for that trivia, by the way. Because the Attila album was mentioned in here. Heard of the mysterious Mr. Enter. He's becoming the animation community's answer to UTF in terms of bitterness and resentment to everyone he encounters. I'm subbed to Mr. Enter. I think he makes some okay videos. Sometimes he kind of goes off a little bit. Sometimes he strikes me as a bit too cynical. But overall, I don't really have any problem with him. I wouldn't compare him to UTF. Mm-hmm. You're familiar with the 70s Attila. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's an interesting thing to learn about, especially if you're a fan of Billy Joel. So I remember watching that guy's old SpongeBob animated atrocities back in the day. I never did care about Enter, and I don't like how socio-political he got. That is something that I have noticed. Sometimes he can be pretty on point. Other times I feel like, it's a bit out there. Do you listen to Revocation? They're tech death with a little bit of thrash and prog. Yeah. I wouldn't say I listen to them very often, but they are a solid band. And they got a new album coming out this year. What are some recent pop tunes you're into these days? I don't want to give away too much for best songs this year, but I have been, keeping note of some stuff that I'm wanting to talk about. There's that note. One thing I will mention, I don't want to jinx it. Hopefully it does end up on the year-end chart, but there's a chance that I might get to talk about Joji this year. And I'm going to get super freaking excited if Glimpse of Us makes it on the year-end chart. Because, oh my god, the chance to talk about Filthy Frank in a Best Songs video. Alright, the album was out. I was confusing it with something else. Speaking of which, are any YouTubers you meet, past and present, that you thought were nice only for them to be enormous jerks? For me, Dark Angel the Light. Are you talking like in person or like just in general? Because anybody from YouTube that I've met in person, for the most part, has been, good. There's only like one person that I went on to cut ties with that I met in person from YouTube. I do not want to mention his name. Atticus likely knows who I'm referring to. But yeah. Also, the late Trevor Sternad was featured on the new album, right? That ABCDFU song is so terrible. It is. You already know it's going to be on Worst Songs. You probably know where it's probably going to be as well, but I'm not going to mention anything further than that. First exposure to Revocation was live. They were amazing. I'll bet. Glimpse of Us. Shit, that song made me cry. I really hope that song actually does make it on the year-end chart because I feel like if Diamond Studios talks about it in a Billboard ranking video, then it's probably going to be there, so get stoked for that. I remember making a meme about that, Felix, Carl Weezer. I made a meme where I put a PNG of Carl Weezer on the Weezer Blue album. And whenever I got into Weezer, I kept thinking of him. Like, that's the image that would always be in my head, is Carl Weezer playing guitar. I've gotten into Tate McRae as of recently, especially the song she put out recently, Uh-Oh. Saw Revocation 5 or 6 times. What the heck? I saw Revocation last month with Christian Alluvial and Inoculation. Crisian is my fave Brazilian band. My favorite Brazilian band is Sepultura. My stream and chat are not in sync. Which are you referring to? Mine or... Because I tried to do something about latency. Have you ever listened to Autopilot Off, melodic hardcore band from Orange County? I have not. Who would you say that they sound like? Because melodic hardcore is already getting me to go, but yeah, I always like when I find a hardcore band, a melodic hardcore band. Yours, but it's probably my end. Christian also did a cover of Refuse Resist. Cool. I love Brazilian bossa nova / jazz. I wouldn't say I know too much Brazilian music, but I do know that a lot of music comes from Brazil. As well as the fact that everybody wants every band to come to Brazil. I don't know if he went to jail, but the Kermit-sounding creep Damien Skyfire talked about a while back had his account deleted or terminated. Good riddance, and I hope he rots in prison. Oh, interesting. If that is what happened, excellent. Because, yeah, learning about that guy and hearing about the shit that he freaking did that I do not want to get into here because it's just really that unsettling. Yeah. Can't think of a better place for a guy like that. But yeah. Not really wanting to talk too much about that. Have you heard Bloody Wood's debut album? It's like a mix of Rage Against the Machine and Roots era Sepultura. I have not. Have you been to the Bass Strikes Back tour? Testament, Exodus, Death Angel. I went to both legs in Maine last month. I haven't, because I just wasn't really sure how strongly I felt about seeing those bands. I've seen Exodus before on the Metal Alliance tour in 2013. Testament, I saw when they opened for the Slayer and Megadeth co-headline. And you know, it's just debatable if I'd want to see them again. I mean, with Testament, they recently had Dave Lombardo join the band on drums, so maybe it would be cool for that. Have you heard of the Native Howl? They're a band that self-classify as thrash grass. I'm pretty sure you can figure out what genres those combined. That's an interesting choice of things to combine. Thrash metal and bluegrass. What's a metal band you hate but everyone loves? I don't know if I'd say I hate them, because there aren't. I don't know if I'd say I hate them. They just never really interested me. But Ghost, like, their music's not bad. It just never interested me. Check out Tom Jobim or Seu Jorge for music in Portuguese. They oddly have only one album, 2004's Make a Sound. Two I could say would sound very similar to a Rise Against and Comeback Kid. Ah, okay, yeah. I love Rise Against and Comeback Kid, so, yeah. Your opinion on the Tragically Hip, the most beloved Canadian band that never broke into the U.S. market. I know that they're especially, big in Canada. I don't know if I ever really checked them out, mostly because, I don't know, part of me feels like it's more of a Canadian thing than an American thing. Bluegrass and metal. Now I want to hear Foggy Mountain Breakdown and an electric guitar now. What are your thoughts on Harry Styles? He did a 15-date residency at Madison Square Garden and sold out every date. I love Harry Styles. All three of his albums, they'll have their interesting kind of evolutions of his sound. And he's one of those pop artists that, does rocky stuff, and of course that's a big way to get my attention. And yeah, it's good stuff. It doesn't sound like super sugary fucking One Direction-y stuff and whatnot. It actually sounds like, kind of more indie, I would say. And of course, there's a particular song of his that I know is going to be featured in Best Songs this year that I'm excited to talk about there. Every girl I know went to see Harry Styles at Madison Square Garden. The thing with, pop artists, I would say, I don't know if there's an explanation for this, but I feel like they're the kind of artists that if I would ever see live, I would want to be seeing them with someone rather than solo, which is what I usually do. I don't know. I feel a little more comfortable if I had someone there with me. Just jab me in the heart, why don't you? I feel the same about Ghost. They're not bad, and they get way too much hate, but their sound is not really interesting. I feel like they're also a band that I feel most of the attention they get is more so for the gimmick, less so for the music. The gimmick, I would say, is kind of cool, but the music just doesn't match it, I guess. That's always been, my issue with them. I remember playing something from them back in college on my radio show. It was for whatever their 2015 release was, 2015 or 2014, and I just wasn't really that impressed. It sounded too much like Black Sabbath, and I don't know, just wasn't really wanting to that. Ghost rocks a ton. I would see them if I got the opportunity. Mike and the Mechanics is better in my opinion. Yes! Someone else who likes Mike and the Mechanics. But yeah. Pretty alright, AOR band. Featuring Mike Rutherford of Genesis. I have a hot take. I don't like Under Oath's Define the Great Line. Feel free to roast me. I'm not going to roast you. Everyone's allowed to like what they like. Harry Styles is 70s soft and glam rock. Mm-hmm. Have you heard of the YouTube channels Metal Trenches and the Metal Meltdown? No. Would it be Watermelon Sugar by any chance? I talked about that song in Best Songs of 2020, so no. The song I'm referring to would be As It Was. On the topic of Ghost BC, I truly don't understand the hate for them. For the most part, they sound like a modern take on Black Sabbath's sound with some theatrics, which to me sounds pretty epic. And yeah, it's cool if people like that. Again, I don't hate Ghost. I just wasn't really that sold on them. Harry makes a lot of girly music, so it's fitting every girl I know went to see him. And, since he was sort of the face of One Direction, which every girl was also, crazy for back in the day, of course they're, gonna want to do that. Not to mention, of course, him being, the most successful of the One Direction guys. Like, all 5 of those guys are successful in their own right, but Harry is, like, the most famous of all of them. Are you going to see the upcoming Whitney Houston biopic, I Want to Dance with Somebody? I don't know. Are you still rocking with Dokken, and will you go on the 2022 Monsters of Rock cruise? I have no interest in seeing Dokken without George Lynch. Unless they do another thing like that again, then probably not. I've seen Lynch Mob back in 2012. I'd be interested in seeing... I guess I'd be interested in seeing The End Machine, which is basically what TNN turned into. But other than that, I don't know. Autopilot... all I need is a miracle, all I need is you. Autopilot Off formed in 1996, went on indefinite hiatus in 2006, reunited in 2011. Fact check myself. They also have their first album... Looking Up, 2000. Make a Sound is their second. Ever done one of these rock cruises? They seem to be expensive. I have not. I know some people that have been on the 70,000 Tons of Metal cruise, but I've never been on one of those myself. I've been on 2 cruises before, but they were not, like, music cruises. The only thing I could think for hating Ghost is maybe the singer being a bit of a D-bag regarding writing credits, but if being douchey is a crime, then there ain't handcuffs big enough for the planet. Yeah, I remember there was something about Tobias kind of jipping the rest of the band. What is an album you like but everyone hates? For me, it's Hot Space by Queen. That's a good candidate for one. Another one that's coming to mind is Turbo by Judas Priest. Are you going to see the Hocus Pocus sequel? Doubt it. Mine is Tickets to My Downfall. Oh. The A Day to Remember album that everybody hated. And that I wore in Worst Songs of 2021 as a means of kind of referencing that. I watched both Metal Meltdown, Metal Trenches, Banger Films, and Thralls of Metal, all great channels. Album I Love You Everyone Hates, High Songs of the Universe by Depeche Mode, High Tranquility, Base Hotel and Casino by Arctic Monkeys. Oh, wow, I was confusing You're Welcome with Tickets to My Downfall. But yeah, both albums that, like, not a lot of people liked. Though I also like that ADTR album, too. Yeah, like, the MGK pop-punk albums, they're not terrible, but I don't find them to be amazing or revolutionary either. Like, the bare minimum respect I have for him is, you know, okay, he's making pop-punk mainstream and exposing some younger kids to that sound. Okay, I respect that. But that's about where it ends. I see a crime against humanity here in there being no Gonalok on that list. God, how long has it been since that guy uploaded something? It seems as if MGK has been forgotten about after his second album came out earlier this year. The last I heard about him was hearing that he was going to be returning to rap after that. And it's like, okay. I guess it's more productive because if the pop punk that we're getting, if this is what we're going to be getting, it's like, okay, this ain't the kind of pop punk I want to be seeing be popular. Did you hear about Jeanette McCurdy's book, I'm Glad My Mother is Dead? If so, thoughts? I do know about its existence, but I've never really been following a lot of Dan Schneider related things. Like, I know the guy's kind of a creep who has a bit of a feet obsession, which I don't know if you noticed this, but in the Rock TV theme songs video, in the transition clip with the transition clip for Drake and Josh, where it says created by Dan Schneider, I put a PNG of a foot next to it, if anybody noticed that. But I don't know, I just don't really follow a lot of that drama and whatnot. Do or did you have plans to see Breaking Benjamin and Alice in Chains? I had to, of course, see the latter again since they're my favorite band. That's the wrong form of there right there. It was my third time seeing AIC. I've seen Breaking Benjamin twice. The first time was headlining in 2015. They had Starset and Young Guns opening for them. The second time was in 2016 when they were on tour with Disturbed, aka the show with the famous David Draymond speech. Alter Bridge was also on that tour, and Santa Sonia was also on that tour. I'm not really sure I need to see Breaking Benjamin again after that. And Alice in Chains, I'm still not sold on the Duvall era, and until I am sold on it, then maybe I'll see Alice in Chains live. I hear good things about the Duvall albums, some not good things. I haven't really dedicated that much time to it, but, I'm thinking about it. Who's worse, MGK or Kid Rock? I don't know, they both kind of annoy me. That's a really good question. MGK I kind of find to be more of a douchebag. Kid Rock I just find to be has some pretty whack political takes and some really dumb songs that he puts that into. Like that Let's Go Brandon song. Is it bad that I like the book cover of IGMMD? No, the MGK albums aren't revolutionary at all. Pop punk is just a trend for the music industry to play to nostalgia, but they really aren't trying to make it culturally relevant again. I'd like it to be culturally relevant again, just not like this, basically. But that's the unfortunate thing, is how it's basically kind of a nostalgia thing. Because we're now at a point where we're having nostalgia for the early 2000s. And, I could definitely see that because I have my own nostalgia for the early 2000s. Both are awful, but at least Kid Rock songs are fun to laugh at. That's true, too. I don't cringe as much at Kid Rock as I do. I cringe more at Emo Girl than I do at Let's Go Brandon, whatever the song was called. Even though I like him, MGK, I don't think Kid Rock made. Oh right, I have heard something about pedo comments and whatnot. It's like, God damn it, can you not? The thing about Kid Rock I find laughable is how he presents himself as a southern redneck even though he's a poser from Michigan. Right. It's like, it's cool if you're into that culture, but you're not really southern, you know? GNR ditching original guys, Axl hires no names and takes home more pay. Happens with most bands. All arguments are about money. Loverboy haven't even split, maybe even for songs. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say they were no names that Axl hired. I mean, Buckethead, played with them at one point. I actually saw MGK live at a festival once by coincidence in 2017. Second song he played was All the Small Things by Blink-182. Huh, interesting. What did David Draymond say in his favorite speech? It's basically, well, to set the scene, this was back in the summer of 2016. And it was a speech about equality and unity and about, everyone being welcome at the show. And that if we stopped being so divisive and showed a little bit more love and care for each other, maybe we wouldn't be in this fucking place in the first place. It was something along those lines. As well as, hashtags don't determine your faith. It was excellent. Me and Stout actually did a video together about it on his channel, but it is private now. I played the speech again in, I believe it was my Anti-Elitist or SJW's video. But, yeah, that was an excellent moment that really shot it up as being one of the best concerts I've ever been to. The part that bugs me the most with MGK is that he had an opportunity to make something unique, but instead went the round of making the most corporate, most sterile punk we've seen for a while. Yeah, and I have heard some, people claiming oh, he actually does have a taste in punk, and it's like, maybe you could be doing something a little more with that, making something a little bit more genuine. Kid Rock is worse because at least MGK isn't political. That's fair. I'm glad my mother died. That's what it's short for. But did he make pedo comments? It was in the lyrics to something. I forget what the song is called, but one of you guys can link it. That whole When We Were Young fest is just another ploy that the music industry is using to play nostalgia. Pretty much. It's just, it's a giant time capsule of alternative music in the 2000s, but yeah, it's definitely a nostalgia thing. Yeah, and it seems a little too good to be true. It did seem too good to be true, even though it is. People did get tickets for that. And they added extra dates to that thing because everything was just oversold. Dead Kennedys, MGK is not, of course. I think When We Were Young Fest is real, but it's just the music industry playing in nostalgia. If they were trying to make pop-punk relevant, we need actual pop-punk crossover hit songs, which we've gotten. That's pretty much the reason I put Good For You by Olivia Rodrigo at number 1 in Best Songs of 2021. It was largely because of that. But I'd love to see a band like, Magnolia Park have some crossover appeal. But that would be great to see, just generally speaking. Hella Megatour was also playing to nostalgia. Nostalgia is always going to be a thing that exists. And, you're talking to Mr. Nostalgia over here. But honestly, whether we like it or not, that's kind of a big force behind, how so many, legacy acts, are able to continue touring and releasing music and all that is because of the nostalgia that's associated with that. But I did go to Hella Mega in 2020. Actually, no, this wasn't 2020, 2021. And yeah, great time there. I don't listen to Kid Rock, but I personally enjoyed his We the People song. I like Bawa Da Ba and American Badass, but that's about it. The freaking All Summer Long, that's kind of a guilty pleasure of mine. But yeah, those two songs mainly. Opinions on Linkin Park, and despite you not being a fan of anime, why do you believe they attracted the anime fan base to where they made so much A&Bs of their songs? I think, that demographic of people, they'll do that with like anything they can get their hands on and whatnot. But Linkin Park is a band that I'm somewhat mixed on. Like, I like the first 2.5 albums, as well as Hunting Party, I thought was good. But I think it's for the best that they're kind of done with Chester, with his death. Because I don't think that that's somebody that you can really replace. And so, if it means that the rest of the guys got to venture off into other things, then I guess that's what they got to do to just, I guess, sort of leave Linkin Park as like a closed chapter. It's unfortunate that they went out on such a whimper note with that last album, One More Light. But yeah, we still miss Chester. Have you listened to any of Tommy Veck's Lone Wolf music? No. Me being a moderate Republican and agreeing with the song's message may or may not contribute to that, because it was the 2000s and Edge. The radio also basically only plays to nostalgia. Any new stuff they play usually gets thrown in the trash when the year is over. The thing with hit radio is that things always, phase in and out and whatnot. Some things show back up every once in a while, but the mainstays are the mainstays. If a song is really sticking, then you can tell. We don't know any Linkin Park, but we do know a Linkin Park. Linkin Park, another band I've never dwelled deep into, though Castle of Glass is an amazing jam. Hybrid Theory and Meteora are both great. Minutes to Midnight, about half of it I like. I was never really huge on Linkin Park. Not as huge as a lot of other people, but I always thought they had some good stuff. Yeah. Breaking the Habit hits hard. Paper Cut and Somewhere I Belong. Those are my two favorites. What's worse, scrapping your toes on the street or lemon juice on open wounds? I imagine the former, because I feel like the latter is more temporary. And I'm speaking from the memory of last year when I stubbed my toe. I stubbed my big toe on my car, and my toenail was peeling off. Also, did you know that Prince was such a huge copyright abuser where he false flagged someone filming him cover Radiohead's Creep against the wishes of the band? I did not know about him covering Creep, but I've known for a while that Prince was really anal with copyright. He's basically sort of like what we make fun of Don Henley for being now. Which every time I see a music reviewer mention, even so much as mention the Eagles. I'm always saying, look out for Don Henley and the copyright goons. Suggest you check out Midnight Devils in 3D in Your Face. Why do I wear shades? Probably been asked this 1,000 times. Well, because the channel is called RanterInShades, and because Shades is also my real life nickname. So that's like the simple version there. As well as the fact that it saves you the trouble of having to look at, my very tired eyes. Which everyone confuses as me being high, but it's just me being constantly tired all the time, because I am constantly tired all the time. I want to listen to Dirty Laundry minus the stupid instrumental. Was Prince basically Lars Ulrich when he fought against Napster? I suppose that's a comparison you could make. He was just very against his music being used in anything. I'm imagining the lemon juice being much like hand sanitizer on open wounds. Scraping ties on the road give me more of a shudder thinking about. What state do I live in? Massachusetts. Prince's copyright abuse was so bad, the Electronic Frontier Foundation awarded him the first Raspberry Beret Lifetime Aggrievement, which is still used to award people that abuse copyright and DMCA. Award people for it? Why would anyone want to award people for that? Unless they're just, like, really, really, really protective of copyright. But, like... people just really need a better understanding of fair use. And how it works. Prince makes the whole Napster debacle look like a casual walk in a park. It does. Like, the Napster debacle was, kind of, I guess, annoying on Metallica's end. But, like, you could at least understand where they were coming from. It's a lot different than, going after somebody for, for playing your music in something. Because, speaking as a musician myself, I can understand the thought process behind how a band might feel about their music being downloaded illegally and whatnot. So there's more of an understanding. I can understand that better than somebody feeling an incessant need to just, constantly be, copyright flagging everything. Which is why I do not like Don Henley, because he's somebody that does that as well. Don Henley and the copyright goons. He has his copyright goons scour the internet for anything that features, like, the Eagles, and copyright strikes them over it because he's a boomer. Did you ever listen to the Note to Scene podcast when that was a thing? No. You don't have a Massachusetts accent. I mean, when I pronounce words like room and roof, and whatnot. It kind of sleeps in because it sounds like rum. Do you want to visit Australia? Totally. Meet up with Take Shot. That would be cool. What are your favorite Emp Lemon videos? Mac Tonight, New Coke, NASCAR, etc. The Simpsons one is my favorite. That's a video that speaks to me very personally, on a very personal level. I relate a lot to what he says about ambition and his analysis of Homer. You know, reminds me a lot of myself. And I love that video very much, and I'm probably going to watch it in honor of my birthday later tonight. Other than that, my favorites from him after that would include the Trump video, Morty one I've been liking a good bit more as I've been, you know, watching more Rick and Morty. The SpongeBob one, of course, you can't go wrong with. The Origin of the Downward Spiral one is also one that I relate a lot to. Those are just a few. The award is basically a tongue-in-cheek award that is used in the same sense as the Razzie. It's used to share, where it's used to shame rather than honor. Which in this case are copyright and DMCA abusers. Huh, that's funny. Whenever I think about the Razzies, I always think about how The Hunchback of Notre Dame won a Razzie, and it's like, aw, it's such a good movie. Why are you giving it this award? I got into the Critical Drinker thanks to you. Cool. You know, that Why the Past Matters video is an excellent video. His analysis can be interesting. A lot of it is of movies that I'm not really that interested in, though, but he's an alright content creator. Dirty Laundry is a fucking awesome song, and I refuse for Tequila Sunrise to be taken away for the sake of copyright. Let the people listen to music on the internet ethically. Don Henley, you say? Insert Italian mafia music. Yes, he's basically a fucking, you know, mob boss. He basically runs a mafia. That's what the copyright goons are. What are some covers that you enjoy more than the original? My pick is Boys of Summer by the Ataris. One that readily comes to mind is White Lion's cover of Radar Love, originally by Golden Earring. A series of videos that I am really wanting to do in the future is about cover songs. There are just so many that I have written down that I've had to come up with ways to break them up into different kinds of lists. The way I broke them up, I have metal covers of pop/rap songs, metal covers of classic rock songs, metal covers of metal songs, punk covers of pop songs, punk covers of rock songs, non-metal covers of pop/rap songs, and then just, you know, glam metal covers, alternative metal covers, other metal covers, non-metal covers. There's an endless supply here. I wonder if he makes offers people can't refuse. Being on the Styx REO tour, Mike Reno is talking about his band A Bunch. He said about the name Loverboy, we would get our asses kicked. Even cash splits keep bandmates together. Johnny Cash's version of Hurt by Nine Inch Nails. Yep, that too. mainly because I'm just not really a Nine Inch Nails fan. And I heard Johnny Cash's version first, and so I associate it more with him. Let me look on this. The Virgin NIN herd versus the Chad Johnny Cash herd. It's why Fall Out Boy never had a lineup change. I always thought it was just because those guys all liked each other enough to stick with each other. Like it's always something special whenever a band keeps a consistent lineup. It never changes ever. Some might call it, that being done for financial reasons, but I think it's also because they're friends, Oh, another cover song that is one of my favorites, and it's one of the few punk goes pop songs that I like. Bayside's cover of Beautiful Girls by Sean Kingston. That was my exposure to Bayside, and it blows the original out the water. Any other musician you believe is a huge copyright like Don Henley and Prince? Those are the two most notorious examples. There's one story that myself and, Fat Stacks, aka Coffee, around the time that I was working on... It was either when I was working on the Megadeth video or the Best and Worst Songs of 2012 videos. And this is also somebody I'm wanting to do a What's Wrong With about in the future, but there was a whole deal about Yngwie Malmsteen flagging somebody or copyright striking. I forget what it was he was doing, but he went after some small YouTuber who, lightly critiqued his playing. And it's like, really, man? Do I think deep dish pizza is pizza? Why not? Ancient band Boston had all kinds of trouble from Tom Scholz taking most of the cash. The singer resented his lot in life from it. LA Guns have no even split. God. LA Guns is another band that's does the whole two simultaneous lineup thing, and it's like, can you not? This is confusing. I have to admit that I have a strange little crush on you. I don't know, something about you is quite fascinating, and I'm drawn to you. Sorry if that's creepy, haha, 27, female from Australia. Huh. Well, appreciate that, I guess. Not the first time someone has told me that, let alone somebody from the internet, but yeah, I appreciate it. Do you have multiple songs that aren't covers that all share the same title? Example, song title Without You. Quite a bit. I made a pun about that in Worst Songs of 2016, about songs all called You. But yeah. It's gonna happen since I have a lot of full albums in my library. All these bands have songs with that title. The Doobie Brothers, Asia, Motley Crue, Hinder, Breaking Benjamin, and 3 Days Grace. I remember ARTV tried to do a series about that, about songs that all have the same title. Donuts, that too. He doesn't like donuts. Why don't you like donuts, Ingve? They're donuts. I'd love for you to do another Schaeferless style video. I'm a huge fan of his. What's your opinion about his work? I love his channel too. Last night, because this is also something I like doing on my birthday, is rewatch his Shrek 2 video, which is a video that always just brings me to tears. Like, I subbed to him for his YouTube poops back in like 2017 or 18. It was back when he did a YouTube poop of Nostalgia Critic called Doug Walker's Glowing Review of Shark Tale, and Doug himself shared it on his Facebook page. But it was that Shrek 2 video that you know, had me going like, okay, if he just kept making videos like this, I would be perfectly okay with that. But yeah, his videos range from good to, wow, this is great. The video I'm working on now is going to be more in that sort of commentary essayist kind of style, and you might get a bit of that in there. Dream On equals Aerosmith and Depeche Mode. Both are different songs, both are good. Your opinion on Scott Weiland? He was a good singer, but he had a bit of a thing for alcohol and all that. I don't know if he was exactly the nicest guy, but he was a very good singer with Stone Temple Pilots and Velvet Revolver. You can add Michelle Branch to the list of songs called You. Who's your favorite member of the 27 Club? Hendrix, I'm gonna go with. I was debating between him and Jim Morrison, but it's like, no, it's gotta be Hendrix. Jim Morrison was a good singer, but Jimi Hendrix is Jimi Hendrix. So, since it's October and Halloween is around the corner, most likely you have. Have you heard of Halloween? Their best song is Halloween. Yes, I've heard of Halloween. Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 2 is an excellent power metal album. And yeah, Halloween I would probably say is my favorite from them. Opinions on Typo Negative. Solid band, I would say. Wouldn't say I'm huge into Typo Negative, but they got some good stuff. Peter Steele was a very good vocalist. I kind of hate how attractive he is, so there's that. I was first exposed to Schaeferless in the Drake and Josh YTV collab Amp Lemon did years ago. The Wind Whispers Mary. Hendrix is one of the most talented musicians out there to come out of Washington. Like fellow member Kurt Cobain. Hendrix blows Cobain out the water by a massive landslide. Did you watch the 21 Pilots MTV Unplugged performance? BTW, it was really plugged in. So it defeats the purpose of calling it unplugged. But no, I have not watched that, but how plugged in are we talking? Halloween, what do you think of their albums? Dark Ride 2000, Don't Come Easy. I don't really listen to much of their stuff outside of the Keeper of the Seven Keys albums. Yeah. Manic Depression is a Hendrix song that I feel is underrated, and one of the jazz ensembles that I played in college, we did a cover of Manic Depression. It was kind of wild. Another Hendrix song that I find to be really underrated is Red House. Loverboy toured with Dokken 2 times and opened for The Who. That must have been awkward. Bread opened for Black Sabbath. They were booed and jeered for their set. I can imagine why, because that seems like a weird band to be opening for a band like Black Sabbath. I also saw that in Jerusalem or Tel Aviv, an artist made a mural as a tribute to the 27 Club, though he put his face there because he felt he can relate to them. Wait, the same Bread that sings Make It With You? I imagine so, because, we're talking 70s and whatnot. 21 Pilots used synths, loop pads, electronic drums, and electric bass, but they reimagined some of their biggest hits. Still, it defeats the purpose of calling it an unplugged show if you're going to be using those instruments. Arms are still hurting from that workout yesterday. A very odd lineup. The crowd screamed for Ozzy the whole time. Crooner band, terrible choice. Bread is 70s music that you hear at your aunt's wedding. Yeah, basically that yacht rock stuff. It's not the kind of band that makes sense opening for a band like Black Sabbath. You'd rather be wanting, like, a psychedelic band, maybe a jam band, stuff like that. If you were to learn another language, what would you learn and why? I've technically taken a class for this, but I did not try at all in this class, but French. Which festival is worse, Woodstock 99 or Firefest? Woodstock 99 is also going to be talked about a bit in the video that I'm working on. But I don't really know much about Firefest, so I'm inclined to go with the former. What was your favorite thing you did in any talent show, like how you once played Heat of the Moment? Well, of those talent shows, that one was probably the one I had the most fun with. So, did anyone pick up Dokken remasters? Were they a leap in quality? I don't know. The one time I participated in a talent show was when I sang Magic Carpet Ride by Steppenwolf back in the 6th grade in 2010. Woodstock 99 because people freaking died. Remember the Astroworld stampede? Do you believe that Travis is at fault for the disaster, as many pointed out? Another thing that gets mentioned in this video, I do bring up Astroworld in there. The reason I believe that Travis Scott was at fault, you know, I do mention this in the video, but Travis was actually aware of what was going on. So I'm inclined to believe that, yeah, when you're aware that something is going on out there, and you're not stopping the show because of it, then it's like, you fucking hack. Is the video on Great White? No. TLDR for Firefest. Basically, stuff was more cheap than taking your date to Denny's, and people were lied to. And oh wait, wasn't Firefest the thing that one dude, you know, put on, where he did that tour that nobody came to? Or am I thinking of something else? Fun fact, Boston opened for Black Sabbath. A better pairing, no protests. They watched scary movies with them at the hotel. Ozzy sat on a garbage can in case he needed to throw up. Sounds pretty cool. Ja Rule and Billy McFarland. You nailed Firefest. They were the faces of Firefest. As for Firefest, the thing that was so crazy was how they marketed the island as being formerly owned by Pablo Escobar, despite the islanders objecting to it. Billy McFarland didn't care. Your birthday is in 9 days. Oh, cool. Boston are a hippie band in ways, still a light sound for Sabbath. I understand why people record audio at concerts, otherwise you forget the experience. Opinions on Burning Man? None. They were promised fine dining and exclusive housing, but got cheese sandwiches and emergency tents. Firefest was a guy who scammed rich kids to travel to an island for a music festival, but there was nothing there. Everyone was left stranded. Damn. Jared Theaton had an imaginary band with a fake tour that no one came to. That's what I was thinking of. Video recording is disruptive, happens even at cover band shows. They should stick with audio only. Then TanaCon came a year later in 2018. It was truly a con. I'm surprised Tana Mongeau is even still a thing. Damn, it's been a while since I've heard of Threaten. Right, that was his last name. That story was just really funny. Speaking of Firefest, remember DashCon, the failed Tumblr event from 2014? That was like Fire Festival for nerds, despite predating it. The name sounds familiar. I'm not sure I know about it. DashCon had the infamous ball pit, if I'm not mistaken. I remembered some guy 827 talked about it. A ball pit? What was it? A festival for preschoolers? DashCon had a ball pit, which was a flimsy raft filled with plastic balls. How much Eddie Trunk do you take in? You got bashed for busting some track use, but not if done by friends of the show. We were talking about, the Ronnie Radke and Eddie Trunk thing earlier in the stream. I don't really listen to Eddie Trunk and whatnot. Like, I respect the fact that he talks about, 80s metal and gives them a platform and all that. But honestly, this was something that I think didn't need to be a thing. Like arguing about backing tracks at shows. Like, unless the band is pulling an Ashley Simpson, like, who cares? Celebrities that share your birthday: Kate Winslet, Scott Wagner, the voice of Aladdin, Brian Johnson, Chester A. Arthur. Not only that, but also Ronnie Letekro of TNT, and I know there was others. Fast Eddie Clark also. Do I follow the channel Rocked? Yes. Yes, I do. With all the talk of failed cons and festivals, favorite movie that was a box office bomb? Well, since Aladdin was mentioned, I'm now thinking of Atlantis. I don't know if that counts, but that would be one. I share a birthday with Will Smith and Childish Gambino. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. I share a birthday with Usher and Shaggy 2 Dope. And President Eisenhower. Oscar Wilde and Noah Webster for me. Atlantis is incredibly underrated. Like, my God, did that movie deserve better? It makes Eddie the old guy in the room to rail against track use in 2022. Ghost got caught tracking even the vocals, the leads. Now Ghost said they will cut back on track use. Like, track use makes sense for, instruments that aren't, on stage. As well as, like other synths and stuff. Like, whatever isn't being performed on stage. But really, it's like, doesn't really matter. I only ever really care when A, it's like obvious lip syncing, or B, I mentioned earlier, like whenever a guitarist is like playing to a backing track by himself on stage, not because he's using a backing track, but because it's like, it's got to be lonely up there not having a bassist and drummer on stage with you. Did you know Pinocchio was a box office flop when it came out because of World War II? Huh. Do I follow Todd in the Shadows? Of course. Todd is somebody that I view as an influence. I have the same birthday as Tommy Shaw. Your birthday is on September 11th? Dear God. Pinocchio and the original Fantasia, believe it or not, despite their praise from critics and audiences, both flopped at the box office upon release due to reasons involving World War II going on back then. It makes sense. It's like, And on the note of Pinocchio, I've been hearing terrible things about the remake that came out this year. Did you listen to the latest Panic at the Disco album? Haven't really been keeping up with Panic much. The only album of theirs I really like is A Fever You Can't Sweat Out. Others have, tracks I can dig. But no, I haven't listened to the latest from them. Tommy Shaw is from Montgomery, Alabama. Citizen Kane was originally a flop. I don't like the movie for fun, but I understand its influence. Yeah, it's like an important movie, of course, for sure. Now I'm thinking of a scene from The Simpsons where the people at the old folks' home are watching Citizen Kane, a version that was re-edited for seniors, and they replace the ending line with, frankly, my dear, I love you, let's get married. And then, I could very well be confusing this with something else, but someone is like, wait, didn't he say something different? And then he gets taken away. He's like, he's thinking too much. Do you still have faith Muse might recognize the error of their ways and recognize that they said messed up crap, or do you think they're too far gone? I'm using pronouns since... Oh, he came out as non-binary. But funny you mention that because earlier this year, when he made his return to music reviewing, me and him kind of made peace with each other, I guess. Like, you know, like there isn't really any animosity between me and Muse anymore. And, you know, that video, he made like a 50-minute video about the history of compilation albums that I thought was really interesting and well put together. And, you know, perfectly willing to support that and whatnot. So, you know, I'm not sure I'd go as far as to say me and him are cool again, but, you know, at the very least, there's no bad blood between us anymore. Another movie that bombed that became a cult hit, Heathers. Spoilers, Pinocchio literally pulls a dash from The Incredibles when fleeing from Monstro. He acts as a boat motor by rapidly pedaling his feet in the water. I think some review I watched of that mentioned that. I forget whose review it was, but it was dumb. And Jiminy Cricket looks ugly in the remake. Are there... Wrong form of there again. Are there any Nostalgia Critic reviews you enjoy? I still get a kick out of his Dragon Ball Evolution reviews, Batman Forever review. Quite a bit. Some that come to mind are the Quest for Camelot review, the Doug's First Movie review, the Master of Disguise one, those are like the main three ones. Oh, wait, another one. The one for Blank Check. But yeah, I still watch Nostalgia Critic occasionally. Very few and far between. Are you still into the Classic Metal Show? Those guys are all docking all the time. More like occasionally. I remember you as a docking expert? Really? You sure about that? But no, I don't think I've ever watched the Classic Metal Show. If this whole Muse situation had a moral, it would be to know your limits regarding ideologies, because you'll end up turning away friends and fans because they'll see you as toxic. Pretty much. You know? You know, there have been people that I've cut ties with over the last year or so that kind of went down that same path. Just watch the OG animated movies instead. But then there's the donkey scene. Should have asked earlier, but where were you when 9/11 happened? I was a kid in 2nd grade. So, I'm surprised at this point that the scene where he smells the horse poop is in a meme template already. Definitely don't like Jiminy's voice in the new one, too. No one can beat Burl Lives. Yeah, the donkey transformation scene is creepier than I remember. That still fucks with me. The idea that these kids have to live the rest of their lives as donkeys. Some can even still talk regularly. Some cannot talk regularly anymore. They used to be human, and now they'll never be human again. It's like, damn. I think Barlive's voice, Jiminy. Let me look at that. I don't like that we're being sent to war. Also, George Bush looks like a monkey. Yes, I remember that from the Green Day video. That was one of my favorite parts of that video. Voice cast. Jiminy Cricket was voiced by Cliff Edwards. I was too young to remember 9/11 when it happened. I was a month away from turning 4 at the time. Like, I was 7 at the time. And what I remember my mom telling me that bad people, hijacked a plane and crashed it, and that it was probably going to be talked about at school in an open circle, which is basically, where the class sits in a circle and for a more serious discussion. And I remember that open circle being incredibly brief, because how do you talk about that with second graders? Speaking of which, how did the donkey spell came to Pleasure Island? My theory is that the coachman is an evil wizard who planted the spell on the island for the sake of greed. That's my theory too. There's some kind of curse on the island. Maybe it wasn't planted by him, but it's a curse that exists there. But he did intentionally take all the stupid kids over there that are like easily enticed by the idea of getting to destroy stuff and drink beer and smoke cigars so that they can turn into donkeys there. It's all part of his plan to get some free labor for salt mines. Plot twist. What if the donkey from Shrek was actually a donkey from Pleasure Island, and that's why he can speak? I remember somebody saying that before. I forget who I originally heard that from, but someone did make that suggestion before. But yeah, that I remember thinking, oh my god. Oh boy, what would be insane if... Okay, you literally just said the same thing that Coffee did, Hair Metal Brony. But yeah, the more I think about that, the more I believe it. And the whole reason he was even being taken to the place in the beginning is because he just would never shut up. Matt Pat from Film Theory. Okay. I definitely heard it from somewhere else because I don't watch Film Theory. Like maybe someone shared a meme of it on Facebook one time, because I've definitely heard it before. I also believed that the coachman and Monstro was the same being, just the coachman using his powers to transform into the evil whale that swallowed Geppetto. That's too insane. I mean, I know there's a lot of insane shit in Pinocchio, but I'm not sure that would be one of them. One thing that always kind of bothered me about Pinocchio, in addition to the donkey scene, was how the coachman never faces any consequence. The movie just forgets about him after Pinocchio leaves. I wonder if waffles could cure Donkey of his curse. He never ate them, so he could never turn back into a human. This is getting weird now. This is getting weird now. Yeah, that's a bit of a far-fetched thought in my book, yeah. That moment when you realize that the Blue Fairy was just a Deus Ex Machina dispenser and is the only reason the plot progresses. I guess. I mean, she only appears like 3 times throughout the movie. And one of them is just to get Pinocchio out of the cage. Whatever you're smoking, I want some of it. But yeah, that is one hell of a theory. One movie I thought would have the villain getting off scot-free was Titanic, as Cal, Rose's nasty fiance, survived only for him to lose everything in the Depression and killed himself. Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, the Blue Fairy was voiced by the same person who was the model for Columbia Pictures logo at the time. The 90s Mulan is better than... Well, yeah, that goes without saying. I've heard terrible things about the Mulan remake. Terrible, terrible things about it. Namely how she just has all of these amazing fighting abilities right off the bat and doesn't go through that kind of arc that she does in the original. It's like, what's the point then? I saw Bullet Train sometime around last month with a friend. While it wasn't a mind-blowing film, it was fun. Heard some good things about that one. I should definitely try to watch it sometime. Also saw the trailer for the Percy Jackson show for Disney Plus. It looked like a trailer for a live-action remake for a Disney movie that doesn't exist, as in soulless, dull, and boring. I think, folks, I know we're talking about a Percy Jackson show. Are we talking about the fucking Rings of Power, I think? Because, yeah, as somebody that's never watched Lord of the Rings before, I don't really have much stake in that conversation. Britney Spears did a cover of I Love Rock and Roll. Personally, I love it, but of course, Jet's version is better. Dad did not like Spears' version, though. Okay. Don't ever watch Trolls 2. The acting is atrocious, and the plot is stupid. I actually watched it, so I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. I mean... a problem I have with most newer animated movies is that so much of them just seem generic to me, and they never seem to interest me. I like when a newer animated film can interest me, but a lot of the time it just doesn't really happen. But I'm only really aware of the Trolls movies because a song I talked about in Best Songs of 2016 is from that movie. This being Can't Stop the Feeling by Justin Timberlake. Dude, it was action-packed and there was plenty of dark humor to go around. Speaking of Pinocchio, thoughts on Little Mermaid live-action remake controversy because the actress was black. I honestly don't really care that much. Like, it's not a movie that I'm going to be seeing anyway. Because, again, I'm just not really sure it interests me that much. Like, I don't really associate Ariel as being black. But if that's, like, a creative choice they're wanting to go with, it's like, no real skin off my back, because, again, it's not a movie I'm really interested in seeing anyway. But that's, like, the most thought I've really given to it. I was talking about they're eating her, and they're going to eat me. Oh, that troll. That's just called Troll, not Trolls. Troll 2. Right. The Oh My God movie. I don't care about that casting size. I'm indifferent. Then again, I'm mad about the original movie anyway. I love the original Little Mermaid, but not enough that I'm interested in watching this remake. You know, the only Disney live-action remake I actually watched was the Aladdin one because I was just genuinely curious with that one. The other ones just did not seem interesting with me. The Lion King one I knew would be shit. And the Mulan one I've heard was terrible. And it sounded terrible. What other ones were there? The other ones I just don't really remember. So they just didn't really leave that much of an impact. Also, Percy Jackson is a different book series than Lord of the Rings, and the show based on PJO for Disney has no relation to Rings of Power. Still, the trailer for the former looks bleak and dull. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on the Cars films? I've recently been going on a ton of NASCAR videos from guys like Slap Shoes lately, since Space Metal Ferrari and I are attending a race in Las Vegas on the 16th, which is my birthday, I might add. Woo. Never watched any of them, have no intention on ever watching them, because even as a kid I thought they looked crap. So, no thank you. One live-action remake I dislike was 101 Dalmatians from 1996, because they made the dogs not talk, thus stealing their personalities, and instead we just see generic Dalmatians doing random stuff. I remember seeing commercials for that and being kind of frightened by Cruella de Vil from that. I'm not sure who she was cosplaying as, but Melly Misfit, when she was posting some cosplay pictures, and she was wearing this wig that I thought made her look like live-action Cruella de Vil. Any Medea movies you like? Let me look. No, I can't really say anything is, you know, jumping out at me. Like, I don't really watch a whole lot of Tyler Perry stuff. Yeah. Medea Witness Protection, I am not sorry. First one I grew up on, second one I don't care about. Third one was also good and closed the trilogy out nicely. Rich Truella, Glenn Close or Emma Stone? Whichever one was first. I'm not talking about the Cruella movie. Glenn Close was. What would you say is the most deserving punishment for a Disney villain? For me, Gothel, Lotso, and Clayton for their cruelty. Those would definitely be up there. The one that I've always liked, if only for the dramatic irony of it, was Jafar's. Fun fact, the voice of Cruella in the original 1961 film, Betty Lou Gerson, was also previously the narrator in Cinderella. Oh yeah, that's another one. Dr. Facilier from Princess and the Frog. That was a cool one. When he gets sucked in. Also, Lotso's punishment is one I believe is worse than death, as he'll become an insect-riddled hood ornament for the rest of his life. Yeah, like... Yeah, I mean, he's gotta, stick his face in garbage. So, wonderful. Oh, another dramatic irony villain death that I'm just now remembering is that of Syndrome. Ursula being electroshot to death, as well as also having a boat rammed into her gut. Frollo falling to his death. Mm-hmm. His death was always kind of weird to me because that pillar, or whatever it's called, just decides to come to life. No capes. He met the same fate as Stratagal. Also, Clayton's death scene went from disturbing to depressing because the death of Kerjak became his final act before dying was finally accepting Tarzan as his son. Yeah. Lotso was an excellent villain. He, along with Waternoose, Stinky Pete, and Syndrome, are examples of good twist villains, which Disney got trigger-happy with in the 2010s. It's funny that we were talking about Schaeferless earlier in this stream, because of course that's something he did a video on, is Disney's lame twist villains. Especially the sheep in Zootopia and the guy that says, "That was his mistake!" Oh, and Prince John and his accomplices going to jail was also funny, as it was humiliating seeing a spoiled brat in such a low position. Because they had understanding reasons for becoming villains. Of course. Syndrome is actually my favorite movie villain. Hades is my favorite Disney villain, but Syndrome is my favorite villain overall. Bellwether, that was her name. Yeah, it's been a while since I watched Zootopia, so I don't remember all the characters' names, so... I love the art style of The Incredibles. Incredibles is spelled with an I, not an A. But yeah, there's a lot to love about that movie. I actually, about a couple months ago, I actually did a little Pixar marathon, and I had a nice old time with that. Thank you, Music or Lose It review channel. Favorite Disney movie bloopers or gag reel? I love the Monsters, Inc. bloopers. For me, it's either Bug's Life or Toy Story 2. Those ones I always got a kick out of as a kid. Leaning a little more towards Bug's Life with that one. I always found those really funny. As for punishment for villains from non-Disney movies, Fairy Godmother from Shrek 2 was pretty funny as she was slain by her own wand. My name is not Buddy, and it's not Incrediboy either. That ship has sailed. All I wanted was to help you. I only wanted to help. And what did you say to me? Fly home, Buddy. I work alone. It tore me apart, but I learned an important lesson. You can't count on anyone, especially your heroes. That scene is so awesome. Math is math. Hot take, hot off the presses. Cats don't dance is underrated. I don't know what that is. So... Is Evelyn from The Incredibles 2 on Syndrome's level? No! No one's on his level. Not to go all Godwin's Law up here, but am I the only one who thinks Hopper from Bug's Life was basically Insect Hitler? I don't know if I'd go that far. I mean, he was definitely somebody that was very controlling, essentially treating the ants like kind of like slaves, I guess. But I don't think that they were in as... I wouldn't say they were in anything that can be comparable to a concentration camp, so... Since he covered the Grinch, it would be cool seeing Dr. Grand, the famous YouTube psychologist, do an analysis on Syndrome. You're not the only person to make that observation about Bug Tiny Mustache Man. Cats Don't Dance equals 1997 animated musical comedy by Warner Bros. Ah. Do you prefer the cartoon Grinch or Jim Carrey Grinch? I don't really have much of an attachment to the Grinch at all, so... I've only ever seen the animated Grinch maybe twice in my life. And I've not seen the Jim Carrey Grinch, but it looks very memeable. Yes, you are the only one to immediately correlate any kind of dictator villain with an angry Austrian artist. But among the Disney Villain Hall of Shame, who do you consider the worst of the worst? To me, a tie between Frollo, Gothel, and Scar. Frollo's always been the one that I've considered the most unabashedly evil. But Scar has the best song. Best of Shrek villain defeats. Farquaad, FGM, Charming, or the angry ginger? I'm going to go with Farquaad for this one because it's kind of funny. Frollo, hands down. If it's not being creepy, it's being a bigot. If it's not being a bigot, it's he wants a theocracy. Yeah. Dude's a fucking pervert. So is Jafar, but Frollo creeps me out more in that regard. I always thought Fred Phelps reminded me of Frollo because of how he used his religion to defend his hatred and cruelty. Pretty much. He even kind of looks like him. Esmeralda should be considered a Disney princess, even though she's technically not an actual princess. I don't know about that. She's definitely one of my favorite Disney female protagonists. But calling her a princess doesn't make sense. Frollo is the kind of man who would unironically read 50 Shades and then feel guilty about it only to read it again, while also yelling at himself about it, pretty much. And Gothel reminds me so much of those evil, abusive parents that manipulate and beat them to submission, like the Turpins. Yeah, like she's a really selfish character who, only, keeps Rapunzel around just so she can appear younger. And that's what makes the Mother Knows Best song kind of sting a little bit. Have you watched any cinema therapy videos? No. Fairy GM, Farquaad's beating is somewhat played more for laughs, whereas with Shrek 2 you get an epic chase beforehand. And what beats here is the king sacrificing himself. Of course. I mean, it goes without saying, Shrek 2 is easily the best there. So, and yet he thinks his actions are somehow justified. Lust is one of the 7 deadly sins for a reason, folks. Like he needs to kill Esmeralda because of this attraction he feels that he knows is wrong and that he's not allowed to feel because he's a man of faith and priests aren't allowed to get married, plus, age gap. And then he's like, you know what? If I can't fucking quench this lust, I'm just gonna fucking kill her. It's like, On another note, opinions on Tyra Banks. To me, delusional, phony, condescending, and shady. Why was she chosen to host Dancing with the Stars? Never really cared that much about her. She never sounded at all likable. Because money, Eternal, because money. Now all I'm thinking about is that part in the Disney song video when I play a clip from Hellfire and then immediately play a clip from Hearts on Fire by Hammerfall. Burning, burning with desire. Get your blasted beak away from me. Oh, shut up, you moron. My favorite quotes from Iago and Jafar. Have you watched Brave Little Toaster? No, I have not. Do. Ever seen 16? I remember seeing previews for it and thinking it looked stupid. Like, it just showed a bunch of guys saying, dude, all the time, and I'm like, you say Burning Desire, you saying Burning Desire made me think of the Shrek 2 Far Far Away Idol song, Donkey saying Burn Baby Burn. Do you also recall the cartoon Liberty Kids that was on PBS Kids in 2002, 2003? No, because I was not watching PBS at that time. Opinions on Ricky Gervais. I don't really follow him all that closely, but he's said some funny things before. One of the characters in 16 voiced the host of Total Drama Island Action World Tour ROTI Pachita Island All-Stars. Zumbumafu was the one PBS show I dug the hell out of as a kid. The intro and credits, music is pure nostalgia. I remember watching a little bit of Zumbumafu, but my main bread and butter was always Arthur over there. Thank God you didn't say Caillou. Why would I say that? Thought that show looked dumb even as a kid. The only acceptable way to watch Caillou is that one CS188 YouTube poop. I remember playing 2 Arthur computer games as a kid, but never got into the show. I remember a couple Arthur computer games that we had. There was one that was based on the episode where Arthur breaks his family's computer. And in one of the scenes, there's this lamp. When you click on him, he's like, "Don't click on me!" BTW, who names their kid Caillou? Pfft. Idiots, that's who. I vividly remember playing in preschool back in 2002. Liberty's Kids was a cartoon set in the American Revolution and had people like Ben Stiller, Dustin Hoffman, and other big names as guest stars playing historical figures. Caillou is the worst thing to come out of Canada, along with Tom Green and Pamela Anderson. Plenty of other not great things to come from Canada, like Mr. Beebs. But yeah. Every time I think of Caillou, I always think of cancer. The only historical show I like to watch with big stars is Drunk History. Drunk History at least talks about interesting stuff, and I like how they talked about Ted Patrick, who is/was a cult deprogrammer. Remember the episode of Arthur that was inspired by 9/11? I only know about that because, weirdly enough, Mr. Enter did a video about that. But I do know of that. Like, by the turn of the millennium, I would say, is when I graduated from PBS to Nickelodeon. Did you know Arthur's original design was closer to an aardvark, then they turned him into some bear thing? Yeah, like, I remember on a lot of those early books, he actually looked like an anteater. And it's like, this is fucking creepy. Where's your Saigon Kick background music? I've never used Saigon Kick for background music. But I'm curious what that's referring to. My favorite shows from my really little kid days were Little Bear, Max and Ruby, and the original Blue's Clues. First got into SpongeBob around 07. Little Bear I remember watching a little. Blue's Clues I remember we had some VHSs of. I remember having a plushie of Blue that I brought to preschool one time, and that was my first experience of being bullied. So, I love that scene in Band Geeks where the doctors go to Squidward's house because they thought his clarinet playing was like a dying animal. Yes. Pretty much everything in that episode is just wonderful. And it does remind me that Little Bill is not on Paramount Plus for the same reasons as Lance Armstrong, once respected but then fell from grace. Right. I always forget that Little Bill was a thing. The only good thing that came out of Caillou is people actually made grounded videos of him. So funny seeing him get grounded. Caillou only exists for us to make fun of. Ooh, sorry about that. Little kids can be atrocious little monsters sometimes with all the bullying. Yeah. And I never brought any toys to school ever again after that. Thankfully, one of the guys that bullied me for that ended up becoming, you know, a good friend of mine in like middle and high school. And he's also one of the best bassists I've ever known. So that's cool too. Remember that Arthur even did an episode inspired by BLM? I think so. Like, that was an interesting thing, you know, with Arthur, is how culturally relevant it's always been for, like, years. I once was called retarded in middle school. Yeah. I once had a rumor spread about me touching dicks with someone. In your opinion, why do you believe kids become bullies? To me, bad parenting. A mix of that and probably just, you know, just not really having much going for them in their home life. Like, less so much because of bad parenting, but maybe, like, the parents not really being around much. It could also be environmental and whatnot, like you live in a shitty neighborhood or you come from, like, a really bad area and whatnot, and you feel that that's what you got to do to survive. Believe me, I know. I was bullied a ton from 3rd, the absolute worst, 4th and 5th grade. 6th grade, I was fortunate to have a great teacher, Mrs. Leonard. My kindergarten teacher was named Mrs. Leonard. I can imagine that if Hey Arnold did an origin story in Mr. Pataki, he'll probably be revealed to be a huge bully who wouldn't mind stealing money from kids, insulting them, and beating them up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he strikes me as somebody that was, like, pretty much an asshole all his life. Any celebrities you imagine were bullies in school? To me, Tommy Lahren. I don't really know. I mean, because, like, because when I think of actors, I like to try to imagine them as being like the really artsy theater people and whatnot. Like back when I used to do theater, a big thing that kind of discouraged me from doing much more with it was thinking about how much training had to have gone into the most successful actors. Like they had to have been really quirky, really imaginative and whatnot at my age at the time. So so I have a hard time imagining those kinds of people as being the bullies. Part of me is wanting to say Sean William Scott, though. I know these are rare and highly unrealistic, but the bullies I hate the most are the ones who do it for fun. Yeah. Jake Paul was a bully in school. Quote, "Mom, he won't go anywhere. Look at my bully now, Mom." Third grade was the worst ever because I was not only bullied a ton, but my teacher that year was the worst teacher I ever had. She gave me detention for kicking her foot. That's dumb. Worst teacher I ever had was just a boring old man. When I was only wriggling my foot to get my shoelace off the top of my shoe, and just so happened to nudge her foot. Fucking bitch Mrs. White was. Of course her last name's White. Because that's the kind of shit that white people get angry about. But yeah, Jake Paul, I can imagine being a douchey kid. I saw a video of a 17-year-old, Brad, beating up his 41-year-old neighbor, and despite the latter being old enough to be his dad, the punk was his bully because he was gay. Thankfully, he was arrested. Ooh. Now I'm thinking of a King of the Hill episode where there's that kid who picks on Hank. She did nothing to stop my bullies either. I even recall her outright calling one of the boys in my class a punk in front of everyone. thinking of cutting the stream right now because I am hungry. So, thank y'all for chilling. And, yeah. New video will be coming soon. Like, probably Saturday is when I'm planning on having it up. So, again, thank you for chilling over here. And talk to you guys later. I'm Shades, and I'll see you next time.